confirmed, it already looks like Samsung is going to be releasing 2 more budget phones for 2020. But here's the thing, it looks like they're going to be based off of last year's model. So the names of these phones officially are going to be called the Samsung Galaxy S10 Lite and the Samsung Galaxy Note 10 Lite. And here they are right here. And they're not going to be the current models for 2020. Of course, we know we have the S11 and then probably the Note 11 coming this year, or whatever Samsung wants to call those phones. These phones are pretty much going to be in the same line as last year's phones. And I actually have a lot of questions about these phones. But like I said, right now, the S10 Lite and the Note 10 Lite are going to be coming out sometime this year, apparently. And it looks like we don't have any actual release date or any information on pricing yet, but we do know they are coming out relatively soon, just because we've already seen these phones and they're already out in the prototype stage. So at least they are floating around right here. The one thing about these phones, when you look at these phones right away, you can see the different design of the camera module on the back. And apparently these are only leaks and rumors at this point, but apparently that's going to be the same module on the back of the phone for the camera module that's going to be on something like the S11 or the Note 11 that's coming out this year. They want to go for that more rectangular design, not like something on the S10 or the Note 10. So it's more closer to the design apparently of this year's flagship phones from Samsung. And of course, when you hear the name S10 Lite or Note 10 Lite, you hear that name Lite, that's pretty much implying that it's going to be a dumbed down version of the S10 or the Note 10 that came out last year. And if you look at the specs, which I'm not going to go over all the specs in this video, but you can see that the specs are dumbed down. They're not going to be as powerful as something like the S10 Plus or the Note 10, I think, Plus or something like that. But there it is. I think the main reason apparently Samsung actually wants to make these phones, because apparently it's still proven time and time again with consumers choosing smartphones. They always want the bigger smartphones, and by having the S10 Lite and the Note 10 Lite, that does mean they can make these phones relatively cheap, at least cheaper than something maybe like the S11 or the Note 11 or even the S10 Plus or the Note 10 Plus that just came out. And you can still have a very big screen, because right now we do have actually a budget S10 called the S10e. They made 3 different models of the S10. So they made the S10e, the regular S10, and then they made the S10 Plus. And apparently the S10e, it is already true that the S10e had a pretty small screen, at least smaller than something like the S10 Plus or even the regular S10. It could be the same size as the S10, but I do know for a factor it was a little bit smaller than the S10 Plus, of course. And since people want cheap phones and they normally gravitate to phones that do have big displays, it does make sense they would put a very big screen on this device. And it looks like these devices are going to have very big screens at 6.7 inches, and for smartphone screens, those are some very big screens. It looks like it's going to have a pretty good camera as well. If you look at the camera on this thing, it looks like it's going to be a 32 megapixel. It's also going to have a wide angle camera. The memory or the RAM on this thing is going to be anywhere from 6 to 8 gig. I'm guessing they're going to have options here. I don't know if that's true. Maybe, maybe not. Then for storage, you're going to have 128. So even though these are going to be budget phones of last year's models, the S10 line and the Note 10 line, it does look like you are still going to get one hell of a deal when you actually buy these phones. And I actually have a lot of questions to why Samsung would actually make these phones, because they're based off of last year's models. And I'm not actually mad that Samsung is actually making these phones, because options are always great for the consumer, of course. But for me personally, even though options are great for the consumer, sometimes you can have too many options out there on the marketplace. And for some reason, I really do feel like that these may be a little bit too much. they may have a little bit too many options on the market. We already have the S10 line, which has 3 different models. Like I said, the S10e, the S10, and the S10 Plus. Same thing with the Note. The Note 10, they have 2 different variations of the Note 10. Now we're going to throw another Note in the mix. The thing that makes this situation really bizarre and really weird is just the fact that this is 2020 and we already are confirmed to get brand new Samsung Galaxy flagships, the Samsung Galaxy S11 and probably the Note 11, and these phones just don't make sense since those phones are literally right around the corner. And like I said before, those other phones from last year already have budget models out, so what's really the point of these phones? I guess they're really just trying to throw phones out there and see if they stick. And on top of that, I don't think here in America they have these options, but I do know Samsung does make an A line. I don't think it ever came to America. So really what I'm saying is Samsung just has a lot of phones on the market and it can be really confusing for the consumer and things like that. But again, options are always good and there is no downsides to having options on the market. And it's actually going to be very interesting to see what Samsung is actually going to price these smartphones, because honestly I think these are really good smartphones, and for what you're getting, you may be getting one heck of a package. I'm also super curious to see when these comes out. Are these going to come out before like their major lines for this year, like the S11 line, or are they going to come after the S11? Because if that's the case, that can really be confusing. And on top of that, what makes this situation much worse is the fact that they still bring last year's name, the S10 and the Note 10 name attached to them. And since they have that name attached to them, if you walk into a store and let's say for instance the S11's already out or the Note 11's already out, then people might get confused and be like, well, why would I buy these phones? Yes, they're cheaper, but they may be worse versions of the current gen phones. Overall, what I'm saying is it just confuses the consumer, and honestly I don't understand it. But it is interesting that for some reason Samsung did decide to make 2 budget phones that are coming soon that are actually based off of last year's phones. And that pretty much wraps it up for this video. Anyway guys, this is Wayne from My Tech News, signing out.